What is the worst reason someone canceled their plans with you? There was this girl who I had a crush on for years. Long story short, lots happened in my life, but it led to us becoming better friends than ever. Things were going great and my feelings were ever growing. A meteor shower was happening in a few days. So I asked her if she wanted to hop in my convertible and find a quiet place away from the city lights to sit back in the car and watch it with me around midnight. She said yes. Awesome. About an hour before she texted me saying that there was a problem at home and she couldn't go. The plans were off. I later found out what happened. Her mom freaked out because the girl bought avocados. Apparently in the past, her mom associated recently buying avocados with someone close to them passing away. Apparently this avocado resulting to a horrible thing. Happened a couple of times. So this girl who I like bought avocados and her mom freaked out because that was going to cause someone to pass away. Spoilers, it didn't, which caused her canceled plans. Who knew avocados could be the ultimate mood enders? Story 2. My mom is the worst for flaking. When I lived with my mom, it was just me and her. I had no friends where she lived, nobody to talk to. The internet was awful. Worst of it all, she had a drinking problem. One night, my mom talks with me about going out to eat with my brother and grandparents. I perked up and was pretty excited. I haven't seen my brother in months at that point. All week, I was hyped. It's all I could possibly look forward to. Every day, we're picking my brother up, right? We're going to pick him up? My dad doesn't have to drop him off, right? Her answer was, yeah, we're going to get him. That day comes around and we head to my grandparents. I'm really excited. I use my mom's cell to call and tell them to be ready. All right. We get to my grandparents. We're talking and Grandma says, why don't you two ride with us? There was my grandma, my grandpa, and my cousin. Mom says, sure. I quickly said, hey, what about brother? Mom says, oh, we'll just see him another time. I was livid. I quickly explained how I haven't seen him in months. I haven't spent time with anyone I could relate to. I had no friends at the school I went to. I mean, what in the world? I pointed out that she said all week that we get to see my brother, and the tears began. Grandparents say we'll pick him up. They saved the day. I was just happy to see my brother. Story 3. They just completely flaked. Didn't pick me up or let me know that they weren't going to pick me up. I was 15 and my friend had turned 16 and got his license. We had planned to just go driving around doing whatever on a Friday night because why not? We were kids who now had access to a car. Well, I sat and waited and ended up texting him, then calling him, with no answer all night. So I spent my Friday night alone because my friend bailed on me. Later, he said he left his phone in his car all night and was hanging out with his girlfriend. Okay, whatever, but I got completely left hanging. He did it again a couple of years later when we were planning a trip to a theme park with another friend. He just didn't show up the night before to spend the night. Wake up early and go to the park. Called a couple times and finally called his mom and he said he had changed his mind. Thanks, schmuck. Stop bailing on plans at the last minute because you just don't feel like it suddenly. Story 4. This will probably get buried, but hands down the worst was in 6th grade. I had this friend Aaron at the time. We met during karate and liked to skateboard, so we naturally hit it off. We'd been friends for about a year and a half now and would rotate every other Saturday sleeping over at either his house or mine. This was always something we looked forward to, until I met his friends at this little summer bonfire he has. Aside from being from another school, I thought I made a decent impression. Turns out I was the weird one. The next Saturday, Aaron was due over at 6 p.m. as usual. 6:30 rolls around, he's a no-show. 7 comes and I'm sitting in my driveway watching the cars go by. 7, I got a call from Aaron saying he had a dentist appointment he forgot about. Makes sense. I remember being so disappointed and sad knowing he clearly was lying. I think this went on a couple more weeks before my mom talked to me into just letting it be. He ended up hitting me up years later after his graduation on Facebook, looking for some grass. I agreed to meet up with him and that's when I had to ask. Apparently I did something stupid at that fire and his friends all thought I was a loser. Ended up having that discussion and even years later it still hurts. Haven't seen him since. From karate kicks to social missteps. Talk about a friendship KO. Story 5. My ex and I split up on good terms. He didn't want me to lose my friends, his friends, girlfriend, and wives, as we all got along really, really well. So he invited me to the yearly Easter party and insisted I come, so I agreed and marked that I'd attend. Right before the party, the host contacted me and uninvited me because my ex was there and she didn't want us at the same party to prevent drama. Neither of us are that type, both very civil people. So I didn't show up, and I was quite hurt. as I even told her that he was the one who invited me and convinced me to even come. Nope, she said no as she didn't want drama. Okay. My ex called me from the party and said, "What in the world? Where are you? You said you'd come." He was trying really hard to make sure I didn't lose my friends, as I'm very quiet and shy and was new to the city at the time. I told him I was uninvited and why. He was angry and started a huge discussion on speaker over the phone. I was so embarrassed that I hung up, and no one from that group has heard or seen me since. I have no interest in causing drama or any sort of issues with others. I'd rather just go away and disappear into the shadows. He tried for months to contact me to get me to come to the next party as he talked sense into the others. I never replied, and he finally just stopped. I'm sure if I hadn't moved, he would have shown up at my door and dragged me to the party, but he had no idea where I had moved to. I'm pretty much a hermit, but I'm okay with that. Story 6. So this is the story of how everyone canceled plans at the last minute for a first grader's birthday party. The best thing about being in elementary school is all the birthday parties. My class had birthday parties all the time. My birthday is in February, so after months of going to everyone else's birthday parties, I was super excited. It was at my house about 15 minutes outside of town. Not that big of a deal of a drive around here because everyone in town has to drive at least a half hour to the nearest mall or to Walmart. It was a tea party theme. My mom made these cool cakes that looked exactly like teapots and teacups. We were going to make our own hats, too. Mom bought these wide-brimmed straw hats, silk flowers, and ribbons, and she was going to guide us into hot gluing them to make our tea party hats. Because it was a tea party, Mom had talked to the teacher, and the teacher thought it would be just fine if we only invited the girls in my class. The boys were definitely not going to be thrilled with silk flower hats. My mom had also talked to the other parents at other birthday parties, so they all knew what was up. All the girls' parents had confirmed with my mom that, "Oh yes, we'll be there. My daughter is so excited to go to a tea party." Then comes the day of my party. Out of 15 girls invited, only one showed up. My mom did the best she could to make this work. Luckily, I had 2 sisters, which brought our tea party to 4 girls. But the pictures of the party were sad. My mom had the dining room table set up to accommodate 16 little girls. In the picture, you only see 4 little girls at this huge table, obviously set for way more people who all look unsure as to what's going on. At the next birthday party, my mom, was totally a cool mom if you haven't noticed, asked all the parents why they never showed. She kept getting answers like, "We weren't sure where you live because it's out of town." And the grandparents decided they wanted the kids to spend the day with him at the last minute. Or even, my daughter's best friend decided not to go, so I didn't want to make my daughter go by herself. Good news, I became great friends with that one girl who did come to the tea party. Bad news, she later totally sabotaged my junior prom 11 years later. Story 7. I had this girlfriend way back in the 90s. Yes, I'm that old. So me and this girl, it was great. It was our true first love. We made vows and plans, and then she got depressed. She quit eating, slept 20 hours a day, and got really mean when I tried to help. So I contacted her family and got her some help. For the sake of her treatment, she broke up with me. I mourned the loss of what might have been and realized it was for the best and moved on. I couldn't keep in touch, long-term treatment and all. Years go by, as they often do. And one day I happened to run into her, totally by accident and completely by surprise. Without even trying, we were back where we'd left off, only without the depression and other issues. So we made plans, and one night I had to cancel. Work was going to keep me later than I wanted, so I called her from a payphone. These were back in the days before cell phones and all. However, I got done with work early. Yay. I go home and clean up and then head straight over to her apartment, only to find her and her ex-boyfriend from the treatment doing substances on the couch. I was really disappointed. Story 8. My best friends and I planned on going floating down the river one day. We were super excited for it. It was only a few of us, and all of a sudden, we realized one of us wasn't texting back the day of. Finally, after calls and calls, he said he couldn't come because he had a flat tire in his bike and had to change it. It didn't work that day or the next and had plenty of time. We showed up to his house and answered the door in his drawers, with a girl in his bed. This is the friend that asks to hang out, and as soon as she shows up, he gets off the couch and walks out the door the second a girl asks to meet up. He pretends not to know why you're upset about it. Another time with the same friend, I said I'd have a birthday dinner for him, cleaned my whole house and bought groceries only for him to ignore me all day. He finally texted me back saying he wasn't feeling well after spending the day with a new girl. Story 9. I was in hospital once. I wasn't allowed to go out on my own, and my friend was meant to be visiting me so I could go out, and we'd arranged it a few days before. On the day, she texts me saying she's on her way and she's going to be a bit late. Keeps texting me saying she's 10 minutes away. I'm literally sitting at the door of the ward. I can't wait to get out. I've been stuck in there for over a week and I was really looking forward to seeing her. She never showed up. Didn't text, didn't call. I was texting her, trying to call her to see where she was, and there was no reply at all. Eventually, she called me about a week later, apologizing. I accept her apology. We make new plans. Same thing happens again. We're still friends, but I never make plans with her. I later found out she went to go see her new boyfriend instead. Story 10. This chick who I was friends with for 6 years was complaining that no one ever did anything for her birthday, which was a load of lies. As the planner and a close friend, I decided to plan a getaway at a mountain resort. I asked her what she wanted to go with, made sure all these people were okay with going, booked everything, bought her gluten-free food. She has severe celiac. Everything. She blew up on a friend of ours because she couldn't make it to her birthday and ended the friendship. The girl had a trip down south for her own birthday, which was 2 days after. 4 days before we leave, I get a text message telling me that she would rather do nothing and stay home, and that she never really wanted to do anything anyway. Now this chick is mad at me for being mad at her? What in the world? Story 11. A former friend of mine moved to a city some 3 hours away from my hometown. I do occasionally go there to visit other friends, though not super often. And one time when I had plans to go over there, I thought I'd arrange for this friend and I to grab lunch. She agreed, like 3 days before I even left for her new hometown. Then when I got to the city in question, not 2 hours before we were supposed to meet up, she texted me to let me know she had a lot of homework to do and couldn't make it. Since I don't travel to her town at all that often, I suggested the compromise of meeting up later than we had initially planned for a drink and parting ways after an hour. She agreed. Then, an hour later, she texted me again to tell me she definitely couldn't make it because she had to help her cousin clean up her house because she, the cousin, was trying to sell her house and was having prospective buyers over to visit it. That's when I knew she wasn't worth the time and effort. Story 12. Facebook is the biggest snitch ever. I invited one friend out to dinner at a restaurant I had a coupon for, offered to pay for her dinner and everything. 15 minutes before I was going to go pick her up, I got a migraine, I can't go. Since she has a history of migraines, I totally understand. I went solo. I actually had fun. The waiter was awesome, got enough food to last me days. Then pop on Facebook and she's at the local bar getting hammered with a group of local schmuck canoes. I wasn't hurt so much as annoyed. Seriously, I will drop anything and go galloping off to help my friends, but pulling that stuff just makes me mad. We aren't friends anymore. Looks like her migraine was just a headache for making up excuses. Story 13. It's a tie between two separate events. First one was to go to these open-air festivities in our city. Concerts everywhere, food, drinks, other events, etc., etc. I got asked to go and could bring friends if I wanted. None of my friends were available, so she canceled. Because it would be weird to go with only me. Why would you ask me in the first place if you don't want to go with me? We have been going to the festival with just the two of us since that year, and we're best friends now. Still don't understand that twisted reasoning, though. Second occasion was a date. I got asked to go on a date, but had other plans for that day already, so I asked if it was the day after. He said yes. Yay! Only to cancel several hours before the date because he had other plans. Boo. He later told me he didn't have any plans at all, but he canceled because he didn't believe I had plans for the day he originally proposed, so he wanted to make me feel how he felt. Stubborn guy. There weren't many dates after that. Story 14. Not cancel plans, but cancel for work. He was constantly making excuses for when he messed up. I talked to him about it, and then he said he was blacking out and not remembering anything for hours at a time. I called lies. Then he proceeded to tell me he has a brain aneurysm. I told him they're damn near impossible to have symptoms for, and even if he did, he'd probably be gone. The next day he called and said that the nurse told him over the phone he's showing signs of a seizure and can't come in. I told him he'll need a doctor's note then, because he can't drive the forklift if that is the case. He ended up going to the hospital and getting a CT scan to get diagnosed with migraines. In the 6 months he worked for me, he probably racked up over $5,000 in medical bills just trying to get out of work, which was a $14 job. Story 15. I had plans with 2 girlfriends to go to a paint plus drink event. We bought the tickets a month prior. Tiffany and I drove over to Andrea's to pick her up in the evening of the paint night. She didn't answer her phone. We waited by her house for 10 minutes and even called her roommate. Roommate says, "I thought she went to paint with you guys." Tiffany and I gave up eventually and arrived at the event 10 minutes late. The instructor made fun of us for being late. An hour into the event, Andrea texted us, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I forgot." No, you didn't. Even your roommate knew the plans we had, and I bet he doesn't keep track of your girl's night out. You realized it was today, sighed, and decided you don't want to go and just pretend you didn't see us calling. Thumbs up. Story 16. She told me she was so totally down to go see Caravan Palace. Another friend told me that if she didn't get the tickets, she would love to go with me. We hype everything until I finally buy both tickets. The first friend is like, well, I don't really want to go anymore. They're not my favorite. I don't have enough money. I'm like, okay, whatever. I go to my other friend and she's like, I don't know if I'll have money on my next paycheck for this, but reserve them for me, please. I'm like, no, I can't. It's going to be first one, first serve. And then she never answers me back. I go to a third friend and she's like, oh my God, this is so awesome. I love them. Please let me get back to you. I'm 100% taking it. I'll go with my BF. This one actually ignores me for the rest of the month. A week before the concert, I finally sold these tickets and I feel like trash because a lot of my friends went in the end and I just didn't know. Anyway, lol. Story 17. My girlfriend has a friend who bails all the time and it's always last minute. Like the day of last minute. Never really an excuse, she just changes her mind and stays home. My girlfriend doesn't seem to mind and often makes excuses for her friend. But this latest, biggest flake is just so delusional. It was not last minute, but it's totally absurd. So, my girlfriend is planning a trip to Mexico in February. My girlfriend and the flaker have been talking about this trip for almost 6 months. This whole trip was an idea hatched by my girlfriend and flaker. They, along with a few other friends, have settled on the date, location, hotel, and all systems are gone. Ticket prices are soaring, so my girlfriend and some other friends just booked. Yesterday, Flaker told my girlfriend that she's really excited about going, but does not want to go unless she loses some weight. Flaker has been wanting to lose weight ever since I met her and gets stuck in stupid fad diets that she tries to convince my girlfriend to do with her, but that's another story. My girlfriend understands wanting to slim down before hitting the beach and asks Flaker how much weight she plans on losing before the big trip. 50 pounds. So this girl wants to lose 50 pounds in 7 months or else she's not going on the trip. I've known her for years and despite always complaining about her diet or her new workout routine, she's never visibly lost any weight. If you don't want to go, just don't go. Stop lying to yourself. Story 18. That her best friend called her right before we were supposed to go out and needed her to come over. Some emotional drama, whatever. Not a big deal, until I look at Twitter. Her best friend was the first thing I saw at a concert. So basically, she just made the thing up. This was the third or fourth time she canceled on me in a row, so I just stopped talking to her. In another story, so this is the summer after graduating high school, and a girl I had been friends with, basically since birth, who was about 4 years older than me, was currently holding this certain internship with the county. Well, she's about to graduate, so she can't do the internship anymore, and recommends me. Everything was cool. I'd been interviewed multiple times and things were looking good. However, I'd heard from some people that the lady in charge was a serious schmuck. Well, one morning at around 8, she specifically texts me asking if I want to meet for lunch at a certain restaurant to discuss when I'd start. I agree and show up a few minutes early. 2 hours later, I'm still sitting there by myself, so I called her. No response. Text her, and eventually she said she thought I was coming by the office to meet, when she specifically asked if I wanted to go to this restaurant. Well, fast forward a few days and she and her associate won't answer any of my calls and texts. I go by there. She tries to play it like it was a misunderstanding and keeps ignoring my calls or texts. I realized that they were schmucks and decided to get a job somewhere else. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 19. When I was 15, I returned home to the US after spending the summer working at a manufacturing plant in Asia. It was a rough experience, and I had been terribly homesick. Being alone and on the other side of the world from everything you know is stressful at 15. Honestly, I don't know why my parents let me go, except to say that they've always been whatever the opposite of a helicopter parent is. When I got back, my friends decided to throw me a big welcome home party at my place, so I wouldn't have to go anywhere with jet lag. Planning this party over my shaky internet was the spark of hope that got me through the summer. A close-knit group of friends were all there, except one friend who ended up skipping out after her World of Warcraft guild offered her an alternate spot in a raid. She didn't even get to play in the raid. She was just there as backup. As her World of Warcraft habit grew, she used the same excuse to get out of all sorts of other things, but this was the first time I recall it happening. I have nothing against World of Warcraft or other MMORPGs. I even had a level 95 lock with tier 10 armor at one point. But at the point where you start sacrificing real-life relationships for the game, it is a real problem. This friend ended up flunking out of college her first semester and moving in with a guildmate almost twice her age. Last I heard, they were still a couple, although she made him kick out his kids from a previous marriage because they hogged the bandwidth. They seem pretty unhappy with each other, and well, more than a decade after high school, she doesn't have any real-world skills. In a way, her virtual habits made her cancel plans with life. She really had a lot going for her before World of Warcraft. Now I feel like I should hop on and send her a message to see how she's doing. Story 20. My best friend was supposed to come to Bonaroo 2015 with me, but he refused to take the time off or buy a ticket because the Rangers were in the playoffs, as he would have to be in New York while they were playing. No, not even attending in person, just be in the same state. They didn't even want to ask for the time off in the chance that he did make it to the finals because the simple act of him requesting the days off might have jinxed the Rangers' chances. Yep. No matter how hard I pleaded with him to just put in a request, he couldn't just leave the team high and dry like that. Wouldn't you know it, the Rangers got knocked out a week or so before Bonaroo, so he finally goes to ask off for the days. His boss laughed at him, told him if it was so important he should have asked off ahead of time. I wasted zero time about his superstitions and sending him dozens of pictures the entire festival with all the fun he was missing. I still haven't let him live it down. Story 21. Recently I went out with a girl twice, but there were about 3 or 4 reschedules in total for both dates. All legitimate seeming reasons, and I liked her, so why not? She seems great and things come up. She apologized every time, so she must be sincere. Said on the second day that she was sorry for rescheduling all those times and being late as well, but that she wanted to see me again. I thought it was great, and we planned for next Sunday because that was the only day she was free during the day to do something. A few days later, I got a text saying she can't go because she took a shift that she didn't need to. I thought she was overworking herself for the money, so I said to take care of herself because that's also important. She laughed and said she wasn't working all those hours for the money. She just wants to be productive and helpful. It's her life, but I don't see how anything can build from seeing each other every few weeks, barely texting and then canceling on me to take a shift you don't need to. I just don't understand why she made it a big deal to apologize for everything and say she was interested when all she was showing was the opposite. There was no need to ever bring any of that up if she wasn't interested. Story 22. I once had a friend who had moved to another town farther away and told me he wanted to meet up at the station in the town next to the village I lived in. I had not seen him for a few weeks at this point, so we communicated via telephone. In my memory, we agreed to spend the day in this town. On the destined day, my mother took me to the station. I waited for the train, which arrived shortly after. I waited for him to get out. Except he didn't. The train took off and I was still alone. I phoned him and he says he was surprised I did not enter the train, as we allegedly had agreed to take the train together to another town over, where another friend lived. The result was me being alone and the two of them spending the day at the other friend's home. And I met his sister the same day, but also decided to meet friends she hadn't seen in a while. She laughed in my face and didn't answer my questions as to why the meeting could have failed. I haven't talked to him since this incident, because I have to assume he stood me up on purpose. Story 23. I invited my friend over for the night, and halfway to her house she said she wasn't coming. Same friend a few years later, I invited her over again. She was about to leave for a week-long church camp and said she was doing laundry. Let's say she said this around 1 p.m. Well, come 8 p.m., she still hasn't finished her laundry. I knew this was a lie, but had no proof, so I just told her it was fine. She eventually came over when I met up with her, planned, at a school event. What was not planned was her being prepared to spend the night. But I let her anyways. For some reason, we let each other go through our phones, and I read through her texts with a mutual friend of ours telling her she was going to pretend she was doing laundry to avoid coming to my house, because she didn't like my friend that I was hanging out with at the time. Never said a word to her about it, even on the 4th-day trip to Tennessee that she joined us on that broke her and her boyfriend up. That's another story, though. Also, we were hanging out at my house once when her parents called her saying her aunt and uncle from up north were visiting. We get to her house, spend time with her family, and when they go to leave, she jokingly says she wants to go with them. Her parents weren't. They said she could go. I sat alone for over an hour trapped in her parents' bedroom that doubled as the living room with the door or windows closed while they smoked like a chimney. Good times. Story 24. I'm in the Navy and there's a girl who I've had a mutual romantic interest with for years. Whenever I come home on leave, I make it a point to see her and spend time together, usually putting in a lot of time and effort to plan a special day. Probably the second time I came home after not seeing her for over a year, we planned to go to Disneyland the next day. We planned the event over multiple conversations and would be leaving promptly at 9 a.m. since the park is about 2 hours away and we wanted to have a full day there. I got up early the next day, get ready and text her to see if she's ready to go. 9:30 comes around and still no word, so I give her a call. No answer. I sit around all morning, turning down any offers to hang out with friends because I had made plans with her and I'm going to stick to them. Finally, around 1:30 p.m., I give her one last call and she actually answers. She sounds groggy as hell, and I can tell I just woke her up by calling. Hey, what's up? We were supposed to go to Disneyland today. Did you forget? Oh, yeah, I'm just really hungover and didn't feel up to going. Wow, okay. Well, did you still want to hang out? I have work in half an hour, so I can't hang out. She's notorious for this kind of stuff. I don't know why I waste my time. Story 25. Oh boy. So, my friend, sister, cousin, and I all planned this big event for spring break. Had all the details worked out months in advance. Time comes and my friend and I drive across her state and another state to pick up my sister. Then drive across that state again and into the state where my cousin lived. 23 total hours of driving. Got into town late, went to bed. Next night was the big event. We're texting and calling the cousin all day. She's local to the area and was supposed to be our guide for partying. We figure maybe she's at work and she'll call when she's off. We get ready for a night, dressing nice, having some drinks. Night progresses and no word from the cousin. It's now after 8 p.m. We should be half hammered at the bar already, getting our dance on. We load into the car and start heading to her house. We're almost there when she finally calls us back. She informs us that she's not coming out with us because it's her 6-month anniversary with her boyfriend, who is underage and so can't come out with us. She wants to just stay home and watch movies with him. So sorry, she's not coming out with us. So we're 3 states away in an unknown city with no plan. This was several years ago before you could really Google and find good stuff. Luckily, a different cousin who had just moved into the area called up a friend who took us all into her house to drink and get more warmed up for the bars, and then took us to a great dance club, where there happened to be a monthly ball with a theme that month being S&M. It was an awesome spring break trip. She let us intoxicated girls crash at her house that night too, and made coffee in the morning. So it ended up awesome, but I didn't speak to that cousin that bailed for several years. She's never apologized, to this day. Story 26. I was 17 and started dating a new guy. He went to a boarding school an hour away and was only home once a month or so. My dad invited him to have dinner and watched a movie at our house one Saturday when he was home. My dad was so excited and really went all out. Prepared an awesome meat and cheese platter with his homemade smoked cheeses and summer sausage, cooked our favorite pasta recipe, and even picked up a nice cheesecake. Like 30 minutes before my boyfriend was supposed to come over, he called to say he couldn't make it. He said his uncle had just gone out of prison and the family had to Skype him. That seemed way too bizarre to be a lie. So I let it go and me and Dad ate without him, with my dad being totally defeated about it. I came to find out over the next few months that his mom had a huge problem with where I lived. I was in a solidly middle-class neighborhood, but still nice, but a goddamn POA, and his family was wealthy. His mom would come up with reasons why he couldn't come to my house because the area was sketchy. I assume she was referring to the black family across the street. I also later met his uncle, and it was abundantly clear the man had never seen prison a day in his life, let alone been locked up for years and years. If you see this, Nick, you're the worst for making my dad cry. Story 27. My wife and I had planned a nice dinner at her house and invited 4 people, 2 colleagues and their significant other, a month in advance. 2 days before the dinner, one colleague just told us they couldn't come because Ronnie's mother is celebrating her 60th birthday. Sounds like a good enough reason, right? The 60th birthday of your partner's mother is more important than an evening with a few colleagues. Except Ronnie isn't her partner, but rather her partner's best friend. She basically told us that she'd rather go to the birthday party of the mother of her SO's best friend than to us. People that care so much about them that they just remembered 2 days before a, I guess, long-planned party that they forgot to invite them. And now they don't get why we don't want to have anything to do with them. Get stuffed, Julia. Story 28. 5 of us at uni made arrangements to go to the south of France and holiday over the summer for 2 weeks. A rich Belgian friend had a villa there. Morning of the trip came. Only 3 of 4, one was already in Belgium, turned up. Very confused. We called and called, no answer. He was the only one who lived in London, literally walking distance to the Eurostar. Eventually, 20 minutes from the train leaving, he calls us and is like, What? What do you want? Dude, the train is leaving in 20 minutes. Where are you? I'm in McDonald's eating. I was hungry, innit? Are you coming to France or what? I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm just eating some nuggets. He called us like 4 days later and said he was ready to go to France now. We were just like, What are you talking about? The train was 4 days ago and we already drove to France. There's no one to bring you here. Are you insane? I don't think he understood how life worked. Story 29. Back in high school, I walked home for lunch every day because it wasn't a long walk. I didn't have to make lunch in the mornings before school and could chill at home. One day I walked home from lunch, got back and found out everyone in my core friend group, including my girlfriend, went out to McDonald's for lunch and no one invited me. These were the same people I hang out with every weekend and many times after school. It was just lunch, so I wasn't too mad, but still upset. Next period, I sat beside one of those friends and confronted him about it. His excuse was, "Oh, I didn't want to invite you to other people's plans because they weren't mine." Like, what? I literally hang out with that exact group every week. Don't use that as an excuse when you're too much of a wuss to say that you forgot about me or didn't invite me. I'm not friends with most of the people in that group anymore, but for various other reasons. Story 30. This may get swallowed by the rest of all the other terrible stories, but when the first Avengers movie came out, I really flipped out of excitement and told all my bros that we had to go see it opening night. So we all bought tickets for the same theater at the same time. 3 months later, I arrived, 45 minutes till showtime, save seats, go get popcorn. 10 minutes till showtime. I text the guys, "Where are you guys?" "Showtime, buzz. Hey, sorry, I thought you got my text. We all decided to switch our tickets and go tomorrow instead. How didn't you know?" "Oh, I didn't know. Maybe you're just stupid." We're still friends. To this day, it was the most lonely movie ever. I just had the companionship of sweaty neckbeards to warm me. Story 31. Best friend at the time was supposed to come over and hang out with me the day my boyfriend moved away. We were young, but really serious about one another. He had to move away because his mother was crazy and he was going to live with his father half the country away. I didn't know if I was ever going to see him again. I was really emotionally distraught. Take him to the airport that morning and head home. Text friend that the door is open and she can come over whenever. I'm going to take a shower. Don't hear from her. Hours pass by and I texted her again, asking when she was coming over. No answer. 2 more hours pass. Finally, I called her. Where was she? She was going to see her grandmother that weekend and had decided to leave a few days early for no other reason than she had felt like it. Hung up the phone and nearly had a panic attack. Called another friend who was going to her 1-year anniversary dinner that night. Her and her boyfriend came over and hung out with me instead. Guess which friend I still talk to? Story 32. When I was younger, I had one of those friends that was only friends with you when it benefited them. I was very unpopular, so I took any friend I could get. Anyway, we would usually chat on AIM. I know, I'm a dinosaur. After school, and if her homework was done, we could hang out and play games or watch movies or something. Well, her popular friends got wind that we were hanging out, and I got the walk to remember treatment. That scene where Jamie walks up to Landon and says, "See you after school," and he trashes her in front of his friends to avoid embarrassment. I said to her in passing I would talk to her later, and she started calling me names. She told me she'd never talk to me or hang out with me because I was a moron, and she'd never be caught with the likes of me. That hurt. A lot. Story 33. 5 of us had plans to go on a big road trip. It was my girlfriend and I, my best friend, and another couple. We had been planning on it for months and had everything ready to go. We all double-checked that we had the week off from work, so I wasn't worried that anyone would bail. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, the girl from the other couple complained about the cost of the hotel and it turned into a huge argument. The next day, she texted my girlfriend saying that she and her boyfriend both all of a sudden had to work the exact days we would be gone, and there was nothing they could do. I ran into her boss at the gas station as we were filling up the car to leave and said how awful it was that she had to work and couldn't come. Her boss said that to his knowledge, she still had the week booked off. I would imagine her boyfriend didn't have to work either. Story 34. Best friend was supposed to come over for my birthday. She was supposed to drop her kids off and spend the day just hanging out, eating pizza, and enjoying with me. My husband was working all day, and my kids were at school or daycare, so I was alone. I wait for her to show up. She doesn't. Call an hour after she's supposed to be there. She's still home in pajamas, playing with her kids and dogs in the yard, having a good old time. Ask if she's coming. She claims her grandpa's in the hospital and they're on the way to see him. Oh, and nothing will be posted on Facebook about it because they don't want to worry people. Yeah, that's why you're in the car ready to go, right? Anyways, it turns out her gramps wasn't in the hospital. Apparently she didn't feel like making the trip and lied about it. I would have appreciated and understood honesty. The incident was just another in a long line of her drama queen lines. Haven't spoken to her since. My stress levels have gone down significantly. Wonder why. Story 35. Not sure if the worst reason, but it stuck with me over the years. Years back, we had begun with high school, and around 2 weeks before the New Year's, best friend from elementary school had called me up to ask if I'd be up to go with him during New Year's. I said yes, and we both agreed to call each other in the following days to pinpoint the exact time and location we'd be meeting. 6 days left. Call him up. He doesn't call. 5 days left. Still doesn't.
This went on until one day before New Year's when he decided to call me. I wasn't mad or anything, and just confused as to what the heck is going on. So I asked him where he had been, why no calls, etc. So he forgot his phone at his grandma's house. That's why he hadn't called me until then. All right, that's BS, but I believe it. Then he tells me that he's going to go out with his girlfriend, which he has known for less than 2 months, and that we didn't agree to go out, only that we would discuss the possibility of going out. So I spent New Year's constructing Lego and making roller coasters out of card boxes for said Lego vehicles. Sad thing is, he was supposed to be a best friend. I'd known for almost 8 years at the time. Wes won that day. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.